Oh, I want to talk about this Khanna moment, this based Khanna moment. This is a story from I think 10 days ago, but it's still very, very good. So Khanna is probably one of my favorite congressmen. I don't agree with him on literally everything, but I love him in these types of committee hearings. I love how he sells the progressive agenda, and I've loved him fighting on the issues like on ending support for the Saudi war in Yemen. I generally agree with him more than the vast majority of Congress people. I've even at one point referred to myself as a Khanna Democrat. Anyway, now it's John Fetterman Democrat. Definitely after that Fetterman tweet on Ukraine. But anyway, Khanna decided he was going to take a pharma lawyer and hold them above his head and just whirl them around in a committee hearing over their price gouging over drug prices as they're trying to push back against the Biden administration's new policy of negotiating drug prices. Now, let's be clear. Originally, it was, we're going to negotiate drug prices for seniors. We're going to negotiate these drug prices that are hurting Americans, that are extremely exorbitant. We help fund the research for these drugs. They should not be this out of control, bankrupting people. Then Kirsten Sinema starts finagling because she's taken a lot of money from these drug companies. She sold her soul. And anytime you sell your soul to the devil, the clauses eventually come up, and the clause came up, and she went up and was a warrior for Big Pharma. And so, after some back and forth, eventually they came to a compromise that they would only negotiate drug prices on 10 drugs, and it would only come into effect in 2026, after 2024. So not even in time for the 2024 elections. So already cucked it a bit, but still, Democrats have been trying to achieve negotiating drug prices, which makes sense. We do this with so many different government programs. It makes sense to negotiate these drug prices. But apparently, the pharma lawyers are saying that this is a type of theft from the government. They're saying that this is something the government can't do, and they're taking it to court, and they're trying to challenge it. But their arguments just fall apart upon the slightest of scrutiny, because they're walking back from their conclusion of how do we make the most money and price gouge the most people. And Khanna tears them a new one, not only for their greed, but also their faulty legal arguments. Listen to this. Oh, we're going to get an ad, aren't we? Yep. Okay.
Trying to trick you. It treats leukemia.
That guy was cute.
Do you know what the price that Johnson & Johnson has set for it?
I do not.
So the price that the drug he's talking about right now treats leukemia. So this, if you have leukemia, you got to treat it. For a lot of people, that's going to be maybe one of the few options you have to try to struggle for your life. You are a captive market. That's what they have. And that's why I believe the government has a role in negotiating healthcare prices. Drug prices. And that's also why I think the government has a role, and definitely at the bare minimum of making a public option, is because when it comes to healthcare, it's a captive market. It isn't like TVs or consumer goods. If you get cancer, your choice is to fight it or die, and you're going to have to spend money to fight it. And because it's a captive market, these drug companies and healthcare companies have drained Americans of every dime and penny, and we're paying double what other equally developed countries are paying for the same healthcare services. And that's because they can be drained of all of that money with them being a captive market. That's why I believe it's the government's responsibility to negotiate drug care, both health. Bleh. Sorry, again, I got the brain fog today. That's why I believe it's the government responsibility to negotiate drug prices.
Trying to trick you. It treats leukemia. Do you know what the price that Johnson & Johnson has set for it?
I do not have that on my fingertips.
It's $484 per capsule per tablet,
Jesus.
Which works out to about $14,000 per month, which works out to about $160,000 per year for leukemia patients.
$160K.
Now, do you know, or I can tell you, how much money, gross revenue, the Johnson & Johnson has made from this drug over the last 10 years?
Congressman, it's not something that I'm an expert at, not something I'm here to testify to today.
$22 billion.
Jesus.
Do you know the gross profits of Johnson & Johnson in 2023?
I couldn't tell you that.
$65 billion. So just to recap, you've got a pill for leukemia patients. You sell it at $484 per capsule. That's $160,000 a year. You've made $22 billion over the last 10 years, and you're making $65 billion in profit. Now, we have passed as a Congress, and the president has signed a bill saying, you know what, let Medicare negotiate to try to bring that price down. And you, in your department, because you're Assistant General Counsel, have filed a lawsuit saying that that negotiation would be an unjust taking. Let me ask you this. Do you believe when the Veterans Administration negotiates for drug prices with you that that is a violation of the takings clause?
Congressman, I appreciate the question. The bases for our litigation against HHS with respect to the Inflation Reduction Act are fully disclosed in our complaint. I'm not an expert in this area.
You're the Assistant General Counsel for a company that is accusing the United States government of taking your property because we're negotiating. And you can't answer a simple question about, I'm just a yes or a no. Does the Veterans Affairs negotiation with Johnson & Johnson constitute a taking?
Congressman, we believe that the IRA constrains innovation.
I'm not asking about the IRA. I'm asking you about, do you believe the Veterans Affairs, when they negotiate, does that constitute a taking?
Congressman, again, that is not a litigation that I have great familiarity with.
Okay, so
can't deal with the pressure. They know that the entire American public is against them. They know that they're price gouging Americans and robbing them blind as a captive market. They're accusing other people of being thieves as they're stealing from others while they're in the worst moments of their lives. And I mean, when we're talking about giving people this vital health care, materially, when we're talking about the impact, this is no different than, well, not morally it's different, but when it comes to the effect on their lives, you have a gun to their head, and that gun is the disease, and you have a solution to it, but because they're in an extremely desperate situation, that trigger could pull and it could kill them, they're going to pay you whatever is necessary to cure their cancer, to cure their sickness, to keep them alive. And they have taken advantage of it time and time and time and time and time again. And that leads to thousands of Americans dying every year because they're too scared to go and get preventative care that could have avoided their costs to both the government and to themselves being much higher if they deal with this problem earlier on because they're too scared of the expenses. And then when it gets worse and worse and worse, they put it off as long as possible, letting the disease fester, letting the disease get worse, leaving it unattended, making it not only more expensive, but making their odds of survival lower. It kills Americans every year. Their price gouging kills Americans every year. They have shown that they have no public accountability. They have no interest in making sure that the public are respected and not stolen from in their moments of vulnerability, because they are the thieves. They have an interest in taking money out of their pocket to the last dime while they're in the hospital bed. They want all of grandma's pensions, and you're going to give it to her, or you're going to let grandma rot. They have shown that they don't care. And if they don't care, we need to make them care. We need to force them to care. They have shown that they are not responsible enough to deal with this on their own and fix the issue facing Americans. The hands-off approach in advising them to lower the prices, as have been asked of them time and time again by multiple administrations, both Democrat and then sometimes Republican, less so, but still in some cases Republican. They have failed to do it. They have failed to correct course because all they see is dollar signs. And if all they see is dollar signs, we need to, for a moment, make them see the patients that they're supposed to care about. They are not responsible to deal with this burden. They're not responsible enough to deal with this burden, so we will deal with it for them. We should not just be negotiating the drug prices for those 10 pieces of medication. We should be negotiating drug care prices for every single medication through Medicare. Period. End of paragraph. End of story. I hope Biden pushes on it more in 2024 after the election. And after, of course, defeating this bogus legal challenge.